Bro, Sean Oliver here, Kayfabe Commentaries, and our best of the KC Vault channel. You can get inside the vault, for a monthly subscription and go through our hundreds of hours of programming in the vault. But here we thought on YouTube we would give you guys some free programming every month. Put some stuff up and let you see what we've got, and you can watch the programs in their entirety. Um, Today is Timeline, the history of WWE 1998. And for this series, we always needed somebody who, for whatever year we were profiling, was active enough where they can speak to all the things going on in the company. And we succeeded mostly in finding talent that could talk about other workers, stuff in the news, stuff the company was going through. But who better to cover a year of Timeline than someone who was writing all of the product at the time? And that was Vince Russo in 1998. The Attitude Era was hitting it out of the park. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. I have to tell you what was going on in 98 in WWE, you know already. But this was the guy behind the pen. This was the guy writing the TV shows. And we could sit here and have varying amounts of debate about how much was Russo's idea and Vince's idea. And listen, there's no denying that Vince Russo was the head writer. And true, nothing would have gone on TV without Vince McMahon's approval. But this was the guy, Vince, have the dog upstairs. This was who Vince entrusted. This is live. This is who Vince entrusted with writing that programming. So here it is, bro. Vince Russo, Timeline 1998. Bro, comment below. Let us know what you think.
Your idea to bring in John Wayne?
Yeah.
How is he?
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was fun, yeah.
Did you see the film he made where he did a porno with a reattached penis? You didn't have to do that for research?
No.
That was years before.
What
You didn't have it in your video store.
No. What did Mushnick say about Bob and anything?
You know what? I don't. I do know that Venus reveals that his full package is intact thanks to Bobbitt, who cut the lights out at the right time. He was standing at attention, cocked, rocked, and ready to unload. There you go. For anyone that the double entendre, hitting you over the head with a bat doesn't completely get you. The character of Gangrel comes from.
There's a whole history to it. Like there's Gangrel is something with the vampire folklore. I researched this.
But did David bring this?
No. We did it, and then it evolved into the Brood. I think he had the teeth gimmick though. I think his teeth were obviously, so he's a vampire.
Yeah, but the goblet with the blood. What is in
That
there?
was just all part of the character. Oh, just theatrical blood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Shane in an executive role.
My friend, a good friend of mine, Jimmy Monsees, was Shane's right-hand man in that department.
In that position.
Yes.
In what ways is Shane like Vince, and in what ways is he different?
Workaholic, man. Workaholic, a workaholic just as much as his dad, but definitely a lot more personable, a lot more approachable.
Did they have a falling out?
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know what the story is and what happened. Obviously, it looks like they had to. But, man, I loved Shane McMahon. When I was going to go back there in 2002, they weren't using him on TV at all, which I can never understand. He personally met with me the morning that I was there. And was excited about me coming back to the company. I loved working with him, man. He was so good.
People cite this match as when those guys went from working just below the top of the card to top of the card guys. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's fair.
It was also reported that this match goes 10 minutes past the allotted time because it was so hot. And Bruce Pritchard is going nuts backstage, losing his mind, screaming to the ref on the earpiece. What can be done in a situation like this? Is if the talent is not being cooperative for whatever reason, but you are on a timed schedule,
they're going to get chewed out in the back. But most importantly, whoever's match is going to be cut is going to be hot at these two guys.
Right, because anytime they're taken from somebody else.
And that's really, you just don't do that.
How did Bruce do in that role?
He was good. He was good. I mean, Bruce could work under pressure. I mean, no doubt about it. He was good in that role. I had to convince Vince to give them a contract. I saw the Hardys, and we were at Vince's house, and again, he only cared about the top talent, and I saw these kids, and I literally had to talk Vince into giving them a contract. So obviously, you know how I felt about them.
They'd been around the company for a long time. What makes you finally pull the trigger on them at this point? Just feeling that they're ready?
Yeah, I mean, it's not I'm not going to sit there and really. I wasn't the guy that judged the wrestling ability. Okay, if they were on our show and they were in the ring, I would assume that everybody did their job, and so now they're in the ring because they deserve to be in the ring. But I thought that they had been around long enough, like in that jobber role, that it was now, time to do something with them at the next level.
We see often guys that there are big plans for, but ratings or crowd, something doesn't work. And then what did work about these guys that allowed them to go from
their look? They were cool. To this day, they still are. I mean, to this day, I don't know if there's anybody that's ever looked any cooler than Jeff Hardy. So they just really had that young, cool, youthful look.
Why is Zamboni? Is this the Detroit thing because you're in?
No, because see, here's the thing that you never see anymore, Shawn. We sat there every week and tried to give the audience something they had never seen before. No matter what it was, listen, it's easy to be a writer and sit there and rehash wrestling angles because they've all been done. It's so easy to steal off of what's been done in the past. We made a concerted effort to show them something they had never seen before. So, a wrestler, perfect for Austin, driving the Zamboni into the arena. We knew nobody's ever seen this before.
Right. He was able to manipulate it? Did he have to?
Well, no, I remember he took down a couple of trusses. I mean, I remember on the way to the ring, he took down quite a bit of stuff in the back.
But was the only, I guess he was shown a couple hours before the show how to drive a Zamboni?
That's it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Here's another classic. Vince Austin will play for the next 30 years in highlight clips. Who's the MVP of that feud, if you have to give one?
Wow.
Everyone contributes, but there's one MVP that goes out at the end of the Super Bowl.
I think it was Vince. I really do. He gave Austin everything. As a performer, Vince gave Austin everything for Austin to get himself over.
When we were talking before and we said, did you ask the question? 1998. First thing that comes to mind in wrestling. Everybody got asked. A lot of people said the bedpan. So take me inside the creation of this vignette.
Here's the thing, man. It's like, see, this is what I get upset with.
And Mr. Socko debuts here, too.
I wish that was my idea. It wasn't. Here's what I get upset with. Okay, everybody, listen, there are people that for whatever reason want to take credit away from me. Vince was an editor. The talent was so great, this and that, so they just want to strip me of everything. Here's what people don't understand, and here's where the pressure came in. The talent was so great. It was an all-star lineup from top to bottom, okay? Somebody had to give them material on a weekly basis. What I compare it to is, how does a guy like Robert De Niro, make a Goodfellas, or make a Godfather 2, or make a Raging Bull, and make a Rocky and Bullwinkle? Because it's the writing. So the pressure came from these guys were so good, somebody had to feed them the material on a weekly basis. So just the idea in the head of knowing if we put Austin and Vince in a hospital room, okay, just put them in that setting, we know that they're going to do the rest. But somebody's got to put them in the setting. Somebody's got to come up with that material to give them. And that's the thing with us, we never wanted, we didn't even dream of ever, making the talent look bad. I remember literally a month ago, I was watching a match, and it was Bray Wyatt, and it was Luke, and Luke was in the match against Roman Reigns. And I remember, Dean Ambrose is at the announce desk, and Dean Ambrose flails one of those rolly nice announcer chairs to Bray Wyatt. So now Ambrose is at the announce desk. Bray Wyatt is sitting on the outside in an announcer's chair watching the match, okay? Right in front of Bray Wyatt's face, okay, Roman Reigns pins Luke Harper 1, 2, 3. Bray Wyatt never leaves the chair. Okay? You've just totally buried that character, Bray. Never in a million years would that guy have sat there and watched a pinfall. So every character we wrote for, we put ourselves in their boots. Steve Austin would not do the same thing that The Rock would do under the same circumstances. Mm-hmm. Neither would have Vince McMahon, neither would have Shawn Michaels. We stayed true to every single character. Seth Rollins, one week he's running away, the next week he's fighting Dean Ambrose by himself because he doesn't need anybody. There is absolutely no consistency whatsoever. That's why nobody is getting over. You had consistency here.
Is part of this the fault of the talent who should know better? They're living in this character day in and day out. So if something gets past the writers, can't they go, last week you had me...
Here's the difference. They know better. They're afraid of losing their spots.
Right.
Steve Austin, if something stunk, he would say something because his attitude was, well, go ahead and try to replace me. Let's see how that works out for you. You see what I'm saying? They were good enough that they had to come. I saw Shawn Michaels tell Vince McMahon, F you, right to his face. I sat there and I witnessed it because Shawn was, okay, replace me with who? The problem today is the talent today is working just as hard as the talent did back here. The problem is the writing is not as good. And the talent is afraid to say anything in fear of losing their spot. That's why you get the product that you get on TV. Back in this day, we wanted people to speak up. It was a group effort. If you could come up with something that was better, tell us and we'll do it.
So Steve could come over and say...
Absolutely.
And you guys would work it out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Oh man, they were just nuts. I mean, I love these guys. I mean, I really did. I enjoyed working with them, but they were on the verge of uncontrollable.
I think they told us that there was a cross-promotional deal that was in place with the record company and WWE where they'd get some promotion for the songs or the videos or something, and WWE wasn't making good on it, and that's why they left. True, not true, or unaware?
Yeah, I would not know.
You come, well, first the Zamboni, now the Corvette. Again, we're sending things in. The budget is limitless. You're riding high on ratings. So if you go, I need a Corvette, you have a Corvette to destroy. How did they get a Corvette that's not working? Or are they destroying a new Corvette?
Well, it wasn't a new Corvette. It was a used Corvette, but it was a
newer model.
Yeah,
Corvette.
it was a working Corvette. Yeah. Here's the thing, too, Sean, that we're going to get a little bit off topic here, but I have to explain this to you because this is what I love, okay? I also get well, Vince, if you were so great, and Vince wasn't the filter in all this, then why didn't you achieve those same numbers at TNA? And I try to educate those people and explain to them how important budget is. And that's why when people say, where's the best place you work? WWE, without a doubt, because we could do anything, and we know that they'd produce it. There were no limitations whatsoever. My favorite story is, when I was over at TNA, remember Tara?
Yeah.
And Tara had the spider? Well, Tara had the spider, and she had the spider for a couple of weeks. Well, then the handler of the spider got paid $200 to come to Orlando with the spider. After about 4 weeks, TNA could not afford to pay the $200 for the handler of the spider. That's what I'm talking about. So when you go from the WWE where you can get a rocket launcher, you can get a Corvette, it doesn't matter. Television needs to be a spectacle. It needs to be spectacular. It's those big things that people are always going to talk about. When you go from that to a company that's, nickel and diming and just trying to get along, when you're sitting down to write the show, that's in your head. Like you're writing, you're knowing, no, they can't do that. No, they can't do that. No, we can't afford that. No, we can't do this. And it limits you as a writer. At the WWE, there are absolutely no limitations.
Right. Throughout the years, you had a hand in repackaging a lot of guys and trying different things and to more serious characters than maybe they had been before in those years when things were weird in WWE. We talked about the Goon and whatnot. This seems like the opposite. You've got Owen, who was a serious wrestler, and he becomes the Blue Blazer. How and why?
Well, Owen was the Blue Blazer.
Well, he was the Blue Blazer first.
I could tell you honestly, man, going back and watching these shows now, even me as the writer, I could not. I couldn't. The badass character that we tried to make Owen, playing off of Brett Left, trying to play off reality. I never could take him seriously as that badass character. Maybe it's because when you knew Owen, you just knew that wasn't him, and it was really hard to believe. But even when I go back and I watch these shows now and the feud with Triple H and stuff, I'm watching them and I'm like, I will never buy that Owen is a tough guy. Now, the Blue Blazer, and we turned it into a little bit of a comedy gimmick. That's who Owen was in the back. He was always pranking everybody. He was always smiling. He was always laughing. I think the highlight of his day was, just who are we going to rib today? Like, that's who Owen was. So, to me, the Blue Blazer was much more fitting and believable to him than the badass Owen Hart.
Why does it take so long to get The Rock out of that? He's kind of broken out many months before this, just waiting for a spot to clear at the top. Why the
Well,
hesitation?
I think the story was like still working, and like it was the kind of thing like everybody knew it was coming. So like I didn't think we really needed to force it. And then again, you're also going to have the issue of, well, when Rock is out of that group, what's going to happen to the group? You know what I mean? It's not going to be the same without Rock in it. So we probably tried to milk it as long as we could.
How's this developed? Something you come up with?
Vince. Absolutely. Vince has this thing, man, and everybody knows this. It's folklore in the wrestling bit. He loves potty humor, man. I don't know what it is about the guy, but you know, poop and duty and peeing your pants. He farting. He gets off on this stuff. That was 100% his idea.
We talked about Vince's ego before, but he's ego-less enough to be seen with the piss running down.
Well, you know what? Because back in the day, look at it. He did whatever was best for business. Like, that was a shoot. If it was best for business, he did it. They say that today, but they don't do what's best for business. They just say it.
Right. On October 19th at Heat at the Bradley Center, Motley Crew parties with DX and performs. Is this your idea to get Crew involved?
No. I think they had a new record coming out, and they probably contacted us.
Did a deal with WWE, like at the record company level, like the record company to WWE?
Yeah. And I can remember that. The thing I remember most about that was like Sean Waltman was a huge Motley Crue mark, and like that was the greatest day of his life, and it made me happy that he was able to experience that. But I'll never forget. I mean, he was like a kid in a candy store that day.
What do you think of the pairing as a comedy theme?
They'll never be any better. Who's going to be better than that?
For something like this, how much is written and how much are their ad-libs? Did you give them that freedom?
Oh, of course. You're giving them an outline. You're giving them an outline. We need to hit this. We need to cover that. But they're filling in the blanks. You can't see that's the thing. Like, you know, you watch the show today and you could see everybody has a script and it's memorized. You don't write for Mick Foley here and Al Snow what to say. You'd have to be an idiot. So you'd give them the framework of this is what we need to be accomplished, and then they would go out and do it. There was a point in time when Nash Bridges came around. I don't know if it was this time. I remember I was there, you know.
I have a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie being offered. Could it be that?
No,
different?
It was a Nash Bridges thing. But
Okay.
I remember when Nash Bridges came along and Steve was in Nash Bridges, and Steve, you know, got the taste of Hollywood and acting. And remember, Steve had suffered some tough injuries, you know, so now all of a sudden he's in demand, he's making a lot of money acting. And I remember there was a point in time where he wanted to go down that road, and he was trying to get out of his WWE contract. And I guarantee you that's what that was about, because I specifically remember a meeting and Vince not being happy, and I think it was when Austin was just getting a taste of, you know what, I might be able to make, you know, just as much money doing something that's going to have less of an effect on my body.
Was anything that you were planning for him, did it justify his being concerned?
I don't think so. And like the part about, like, you know, Vince felt he needed to hum. I don't remember, or I don't think any of that is true.
Why'd you guys add a hardcore title? Is this a nod to ECW?
This is just another thing that, man, there's so many things about wrestling that people just don't want to freaking admit. You watch the product today. there are wrestling matches that go through 2 commercial breaks. Okay. If I'm not a wrestling fan, I'm not watching that. The reason for the amount of gimmick matches is designed for the casual fan. Okay, if I'm not a wrestling fan, I'm not going to watch wrestling. However, if I'm flipping through the channels and there's a ladder in the ring, or there's a cage up, or there's a couple of garbage pails in the ring, anything that is going to stop me dead in my tracks, we're going to book that over a wrestling match. That's going to get the casual audience. That's why there were pole matches. You know, that's why there were spectacles, because I might not care about wrestling, but whoa, wait a minute, that lunatic's climbing up a ladder and the other guy's hitting him with a garbage pan, to give them the spectacle that would draw them into it, that wasn't just a straightforward 2 guys in a ring wrestling that I'm going to click right by.
Right.
So that's really where the hardcore matches came from.
The belt had a very cool design. It was like kind of cracked and pieced together. Who does that aspect of work for the company?
That would have been a Richie Curtis.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Reaction from Vince?
Well, you know, they had a
Yes.
one of my favorite things in the world was that, and I'm sure you're coming up on it soon, but you don't even think about like having a cigarette. I'm talking about, forget about even lighting it up. Don't even think about having a cigarette like within a mile radius of Vince.
Oh.
He, like, cigarette smoking, like, forget about it. I mean, you wouldn't even dream about it. I mean, he used to get Pat on all the time. He used to get on Patterson all the time because Pat used to smoke. He used to get Pat would never smoke around him, but just Pat's cigarette breath was enough to drive Vince crazy. But I'll never forget, man, you know, here was Jesse. He was now the mayor of Minnesota, governor of Minnesota. We brought him onto a show, okay, and the entire night backstage, he had a cigar this big, blowing the smoke directly in Vince's face. I mean, just like, you know, all those years, and I'm the governor now, and like, what are you going to do about it? And just the look on Ventura's face was just absolutely priceless.
Is Vince selling?
No, he wasn't selling, but he didn't say anything either. He didn't say anything. Wow. He let the governor smoke. Yeah.
Once he's elected, the wheels have to start turning over at Titan Tower. How to, like, whatever problems they had before, it's too big now not to put aside. What are early plans?
There really are, because, again, that would have been something that would have been going on Vince's end. And then basically we would have got the call that, oh, we got Jesse and he's going to be on this show. So, I mean, there weren't any plans in motion until we knew that we had him. That was the greatest piece of wrestling writing in history of wrestling.
Go ahead.
Ed and I had worked so long on this storyline, and it was so thorough, and it was so concise, and it was a long, drawn-out plan. And I'll never forget that night in the arena. You knew it worked because the second Rock did it, like you could hear a pin drop in the house. Nobody saw it coming whatsoever. And here's the funny thing. Along the way, if you remember, Rock drops the people's elbow on Vince. But keep in mind, they're in cahoots this whole time. But like Ed and I looked at each other, we're like, it's an elbow. Right. But the people's elbow was so over that when Rock did it, it was like, oh. Right. But like me and Ed were like, it's an elbow.
He'll be able to take it.
Exactly. So like it worked that day. Was still working. But the fact that he dropped it, people like, so that's why when he did the turn, they couldn't believe it.
It wouldn't be a tombstone. It wouldn't be able to work. But
then like after 3 seconds, when it sunk in, that was the best thing I ever did in my entire career.
Was The Rock a better heel or babyface?
I mean, that's such a hard question because I don't consider him either a heel or a babyface. I consider him The Rock. See, I mean, when we wrote the TV, and here's what's different today too, we didn't care if they booed you, and we didn't care if they cheered you. We cared if they reacted to you. That's all we cared about. If they want to cheer you, great. If they want to boo you, cheer. As long as they're reacting to you, that's the important thing. So that's why when you say that, like immediately, I don't think of Rock as a babyface or a heel. I think of him as The Rock, because depending on who's looking at him, you could either cheer him or you could either boo him.
Was he at his best being cheered or booed?
Being cheered.
Is it true that he doesn't like this angle?
If he doesn't like the angle, I mean, that's news to me because he did not tell me he did not like the angle.
Who came up with the idea of the fall?
I think it was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you propose this to him? It's got to be delicate because it does touch on a personal life issue with the person. It might not be the only time you've done this where you take some element of an uncomfortable element of a person's life and turn it into an angle. Do you have to have a delicate discussion?
You do have to have a delicate discussion, but you're also hoping that maybe it's a wake-up call. You know what I'm saying? That maybe if you face, reality and face the facts, and now like you're seeing it sober, that maybe like that's a wake-up call to you, even if you say, oh my God, other people are noticing. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times it was that too. Like I remember once with Road Dogg, he was dealing a lot with drugs and stuff at the time, but then he had become like clean and sober, and I wanted him to cut a promo on that to basically hold him responsible for staying clean and sober. You see, once you go out in front of the people and say, well, I had a problem, but I'm clean and this and that, now you may think twice before you go and screw up again, because I just went on national TV and said I was clean and sober. And I know he had an issue with it, and we wound up not doing it. But, that's how I would handle it. I mean, listen, this is the reality of the situation. We can discuss it, we can handle it, but in the back of my mind, I was hoping it was. Listen, I'll be honest, I've never told this story like publicly, and I don't know if it was before this or I don't know if it was after it, but I'll never forget this as long as I live, because it might have been one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. But I remember I was at an airport one morning, very early in the morning. We just had a show and we were leaving town. And I remember, man, seeing Animal wheeling Hawk through the airport in a wheelchair, and he was totally out and foaming at the mouth. And I remember seeing this, and like I knew like this is not going to turn out good. Now, I to be honest with you, I'm almost certain this was before that, because I wouldn't have seen something like that and then
done this angle.
Absolutely not. I mean, and I was probably so naive at the time, because I never took drugs, I never drank, I never did anything like that. I was probably so naive at the time that I didn't realize the issues he was having was as serious as they were. That's how naive I was. But I'll never forget that sight. Man, you talk about what's best for business. I'll never forget this. This was after WrestleMania, and Vince and Shawn did not make up after that WrestleMania match, okay? So Shawn went away, took care of his back injury and all that, and I remember, proposing to Vince, we need to bring Shawn back on TV, and it was probably this. And because it was what was best for business.
Right.
And even though I could have told you firsthand that, yes, at times he was an absolute pain in the backside to work with, you still sucked it up because he was that good and it was best for business. So I remember we called him. He agreed to come back to TV. Something happened where, like, there were 2 days of television, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but, like, there were 2 days of television. One day Shawn was not booked for. He was booked for the second day. Mm-hmm. There was a mistake made in travel, whatever the case may be. They flew him in the first day. He was at the building, and then somebody told him he wasn't on the show. I remember him coming after me, and I mean literally threatening me and like cut a scathing promo on me. And I remember I went to Vince and I said, bro, you need to do something about Shawn, because, I mean, he really, like, I was shaken. I mean, it was like no wrestler had ever really spoken to me before or anything like that. And it was like there was a threat. And I was shaking, and I'm like, bro, you need to do something. And I remember Vince turned around to me. He goes, I need to do something. You were the one that talked me into bringing him back. He goes, you do something. You know what I'm saying? So, and he was right, because I went to bat for Shawn. So, like, just based on that experience, obviously wounds hadn't healed, and that's probably why.
This is an extreme example. I mean, this is going as far away from the wrestling ring as you can. Is this you and Ed?
Yeah. What were the specifics, though?
Yeah, it is footage airs of Undertaker carrying Austin into the embalming room of a mortuary. Paul Bearer puts on plastic gloves and the plastic gown in preparation. Austin's shown lying on the table, shirt cut open, pair of scissors lying on his chest. Undertaker begins chanting in tongues, slowly raises a large dagger-like knife. Just as he's about to lower the knife, Kane barges in. They brawled. Bearer picked up the scissors and attempted to stick them into Austin. Austin wakes up and stops him in the four brawl until the footage gets cut.
That sounds like a good Batman 66 episode, doesn't it?
The shark repellent almost came out right here.
Man.
Where's the shot?
What do you mean?
Where do you shoot? Where's the mortuary?
We probably went to a mortuary.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that's where we shot it. You got to understand, we're so hot that, like, whatever we want to use, whatever we want to do with the WWE, you're going to have exposure, you're going to be on TV, blah, blah, blah. There were no, we were there. I mean, I don't remember anybody
There's
saying
no
it
element
was.
of second guess, that maybe it's disrespectful.
To who? The dead? They're dead. What do they care? Come on, man, this is classic TV.
What do you think of her when she first comes into the company? Is she ever someone that you think could inherit this kind of power?
Oh, business-wise?
Yes,
no. Mm-mm.
Did she originally want to be on-air talent? Did she want to run the WWE?
Vince's plan was the same that it was with Shane. You know, he taught the kids, like, every aspect of the business. He would literally put them in every department: marketing, PR, creative. I mean, that's what he did with Shane. He was going to do the same thing with Stephanie.
Right. How do you think she's done as head of creative?
I think that was the biggest mistake that Vince McMahon made in the history of the company. I don't think he's recovered from it, and I think it has a lot to do with them being in the spot that they're in today. Listen, man, we all know ourselves. We're good at some things. We're not so good at some things. I was a guy that I could write the show and I could produce the talent, okay? I knew what I was good at. I never tried to do anything else because I firmly believe when we try to be something we're not, that's when we get ourselves in trouble. Okay, like I worked with an Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff is a phenomenal businessman. I suck at business. I've put some of my own businesses out of business. I'm horrible. Can Eric Bischoff write a television show? No, he can't. He thinks he can, but he can't. There are things we can do. You cannot just put somebody as head of creative if they're not creative and if that's not their background. And the problem was, once Vince put Stephanie in that spot, there was no turning back because it was his daughter, it was his flesh and blood. He's not going to leave egg on her face. He's not going to say my daughter failed. He's not going to do that. So immediately by putting her in that position, there was no turning back. You can look at ratings since she's been in that spot. If it were anybody else, that spot would have been turned over at least 5 times by now. But he cannot do that to his own daughter, and I felt that was a huge mistake.
If called back today, could you work for Stephanie McMahon?
No, that's why I didn't. That's why I wound up not going there in 2002. It was explained to me that Shane McMahon was really behind me going back, and it was explained to me by one of the writers that was working there at the time. It just so happened when I met with the writers the day that I was there, all the writers are there. Stephanie McMahon is not there. Next thing I know, I'm being summoned into another room, and Stephanie's on the speakerphone. Now, keep in mind, I had left the company 3 years ago. I had no contact with anybody or anything. Stephanie, on the speakerphone, starts literally talking down to me like I'm a 12-year-old kid.
Saying like...
Just talking to me with disrespect. We do this now, we do that, we don't do this anymore, blah, blah, blah. The minute she hung up the phone, I knew this is not going to work out. And Vince called me the next morning and basically said, Vince, I don't think this is going to work out, because the fact of the matter is, he knew what I did and he knew what I was capable of. And the notion of me working under Stephanie creatively was insanity. But again, that was his daughter. He wasn't going to leave egg on her. He was not going to replace Vince Russo. That was not going to happen.
Right.
So he had no other choice. You know, it's getting to know the personality of the guys in the back. And Mark Henry.
No, I was going to say, Mark.
Yeah, he's a marshmallow, man. He's just a big marshmallow. And just the whole idea of him falling for China, I mean, we just knew it would be great. China was great in the role.
Are you guys laughing all the time?
We're laughing all the time. Can I tell you something? It's so sad to talk about this stuff and then know what's going to be on Monday. I'm being serious. It's like, can somebody explain to me why this can't be happening today? I hear Triple H. It's a different time. It's a different time. It's a different time, so you can't write good TV.
No, it's because it's edgy and they're beholden to Wall Street and shareholders who might be very conservative, and that's really who's writing wrestling now, are the shareholders. And so we can't risk anyone Googling China and seeing something and going to their daddy who's CEO of Wells Fargo, who was maybe going to invest in WWE the next day, and going, that's the girl that's going to be on the show that we're going to watch, and him going, okay, we have to reconsider the investment of 500,000 shares we were going to make tomorrow. That's what it's about. Come on. Just how far can we go with the the evil.
Yeah, just again, what have we not seen on a wrestling show?
Right.
I mean, really, that's what have we not seen? What can be a spectacle? You know, him on that big symbol. I mean, that's a spectacle.
That's what I wanted to say. When and we saw what was the result, but was there growth from what you pitched up to that? Like, what are you seeing in your vision with Ed when you come up with the idea? Is it what we finally saw?
It is, because we know we can make it as large as possible and they'll pull it off. So we shoot for the moon because we know we've got that crew and that staff and that talent behind us that will make it happen.
And Steve is behind it from the first pitch. No.
I think he had a little problem with that at the time because it was a big babyface thing. You know, him saving Stephanie was. I think that took some convincing. But I mean, at the end of the day, if Steve didn't want to do something, he wouldn't have done it. So he went along with it.
Did you expect the controversy that it got?
No.
Or did you welcome it anyway? Because it's.
Well, listen, I'm a Christian guy now. I wasn't then. I wasn't then. So like now, I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, are you going to hell or what? I mean, but then it was like, honestly, I didn't look at it as any big deal.
What about internal reaction? Anyone in the company bothered by it?
I think I think it would have been a huge difference if it was a cross, but it wasn't a cross. You know, Taker had a symbol, it was Taker's symbol, and I know we were careful to really say that, you know, the Undertaker's symbol more than once.
Is this your first on a pole match that you proposed?
Could have been.
Might been.
Could have been.
It started a long trend. It's been covered before, but it bears repeating. What is it about the on the pole match? I know anyone in a box is over right away. I know anyone in a box, but what about the pole?
There haven't been a lot of on the pole matches because, listen, I challenge you right now. Name 3 on the pole matches without that one.
Viagra.
Yes.
Judy.
On a forklift, but I'll give you that
right,
one.
That's right.
Okay.
What's that?
Well, that was done way before me.
Oh, tequila.
I think it was Pinata, though, right? Yeah. Okay, but that's, you know. No, see, those aren't even mine. But they're not mine. See, you people remember specifically Viagra on a pole.
Yes.
Judy Bagwell on a forklift, but I'll give you the pole with that. And they remember Pinata on a pole.
Yes.
Those are the things they remember. So that equates to you did 5,000 pole matches. No, you remember 3 very specific pole matches because you're still talking about it 15 years later, but there were not 100 pole matches. Here's the thing, man. And this was a big attitude spot, too. Okay? I'll never forget, we have the Survivor Series. Brett punches Vince, right? Vince has a shiner. Okay. I remember the next day at television. Now, keep in mind, this is like just the top guys are in this meeting. Okay, so it's me, it's Vince, it's Pritchard, it's Kevin Dunn, you know, Patterson would be there, Briscoe would be there, Lons would be there, all the agents would be there. Okay, there's probably 8 people in this room. Okay, so Vince has a black eye. Mm-hmm. So the instinct of everybody in this room is to just bury this under the rug. Like we're not gonna, you know, we're not gonna publicly tell people what happened. That you know, Brett gave Vince a black eye. Blah 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 blah. You know, the instinct was to bury this, kayfabe this to everybody, right? So I remember I'm sitting in the room and I'm listening to all this. Cornette was probably in there too. Mm-hmm. I'm listening. Was he?
I think so.
Yeah. So I'm listening to all this, and I'm saying to myself, Bret Hart just punched Vince McMahon in the face as a shoot and we're going to sweep this under the rug? Because I'm thinking ratings.
Right.
Right? So I'm listening, and then finally I said that. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? This is the biggest story perhaps in the history of wrestling, and we're going to sweep this under the rug. And, you know, I could tell everybody was quiet, like, you know, how dare Russo say that, but I could see Vince, and I could see, like, the wheels starting to turn a little bit. That turned into Vince didn't screw Brett, Brett screwed Brett promo, which was a huge part and a huge piece of the Attitude Era.
Were we all worked by Montreal? Was it
No,
possible?
I wish you were. I really do. Not many people know this. When it was going down that day at Vince's house, it was Vince, it was me and Cornette. It was the three of us were there, okay? I'll never forget, early on, Vince took me out of the room, and he says, Vince, he goes, Brett is supposed to call me today. He said, when Brett calls me, I want you to silently be the third party on the phone to be a witness. So when Vince had the conversation with Brett, I was on the phone without Brett knowing about it. I heard with my own two ears Vince pitch every possible scenario to Brett. Every scenario just to get the belt off Brett. And Brett poo-pooed one after the other after the other. I heard it. No, 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 no. So then we hang up the phone, we go back to the table, and I had just come off this conversation, right? And now it's getting late, and we'd been there all day. So now, like, I was a little pissed off because I heard Vince give Brett at least half a dozen options. So I remember I said off the top of my head, Vince, screw him. I said, have freaking Shawn put him in the sharpshooter, have Shawn put him in his own move, and have the referee call for the bell. Not because I was pissed, you know, because I was like, Vince was really trying to work something out with Brett, and Brett, no, 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 no. So I went back to that table. I was like, freaking screw it. So, like, literally right after that, it was late at night. We went home, okay? I did not see or hear from Vince for like the next 2 days, which was not the norm. Trust me, not the norm. So I have no idea what the and I'm not going to ask him. I mean, it's like that. It's none of my business at this point. So I have no idea what the outcome is going to be. We get to the building that day. He's still avoiding me like the plague. You know, there's no communication. I'm taking care of what I have to take care of for the rest of the show. I'm not even involved in that. Sure enough, I mean, you know, the match comes. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what this is taking. I'm literally sitting next to Taker and watching this on the monitor, and I see Shawn put him in the sharpshooter.
And that's when you realized?
Well, my first instinct was like, no way. You know, I mean, really, I was like, no way. And then sure enough, the bell and blah, 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 and the rest was history. But the Vince didn't screw Brett, Brett screwed Brett, that was huge for the Attitude Era. Because that was, I mean, that was real. That was legitimate.
Would Vince have gone along with their suggestion to sweep it under the rug had you not spoken up?
I think so, yeah. And I also want to say, too, you know, just for the record, the Survivor Series took place on on Sunday. This is the God honest truth, man. Friday night, I'm home at my house. It's late at night. My phone rings. I pick up the phone. It's Owen Hart. Owen is hysterical, upset, crying, and he basically said to me, he said, Vince, he goes, Brett is threatening to disown me, not talk to me, not have anything to do with me the rest of his life if I go back to the WWE. You need to talk to him. So I was like, this was like way out of my place. Like I said, Owen, I said, it's not in my place to talk to Brett. You need to call Vince. And he goes, Vince, I tried to call Vince, and I can't get a hold of him. You need to talk to Brett for me. I loved Owen to death. And the fact that he was like this upset, I felt that I had like no other choice. Yeah. And like, you know, Owen already told me I can't get a hold of Vince. So like I couldn't call Vince, because if Owen couldn't get a hold of him, I wouldn't have been able to get a hold of him. I called Brett. This is like the Friday after the Survivor Series. And I called Brett, and I told him, man, it was one of the hardest I swear to God, the two hardest things I think I ever had to do with wrestling was this conversation with Brett 6 days after, and seeing Brett man-to-man, face-to-face the first time I went to WCW after Owen had passed away, okay? So I called Brett, and I said to him, I said, Brett, I said, you're not going to agree with this. I said, you're going to hate me for it. You're going to despise me for it. I said, but I have to be honest with you. I said, I would have done the same exact thing Vince did. And I explained to Brett, I said, listen, it had nothing to do with Vince not trusting you. The issue was Medusa had just come off of dropping the woman's title in the garbage. Vince McMahon did not trust Eric Bischoff. I said all Vince was trying to do was protect his company and protect everybody in it. I said, so Brett, with all due respect, I said I would have done the same exact thing. And I mean, Brett said some things like in that conversation that like I won't repeat, but I wish all that was a work. And I mean, that's why people today like still talk about that as being a work, and I'm like, man, that was the hardest time for everybody.
Said things to you that you wouldn't repeat, like curses, you mean, or
no,
threats?
No,
or?
like what he felt like doing.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was just unrational. I mean, I could understand it. He was unrational at the time, but I mean, anybody that thinks that was a work, I mean, please. I remember the worst thing of that day for me, and maybe my entire career, was like not knowing the facts. When that all went down, one of the first people I saw was Mick Foley, who I was very close to and still am to this day. And Mick looked at me and he said to me, he said, Vince, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I mean, that broke my heart.
Why did he think automatically that you were behind it, and it wasn't a move that Vince pulled even behind your back?
Well, I don't think he thought that I was behind it, but I think he thought, you know, being that it was a creative issue, I knew about it. Oh. You know what I'm saying? Right. But like, it hurt me so much, but it was like, I knew the circumstances. I heard the conversation, you know, and...
Right.
I don't regret it, and I'll tell you why, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I always looked at this as a television show. You know, because from 9 to 11 on Monday night, we are competing with other television shows. Stuff like this happens in other television shows all the time. It's not real. It's a show. It's entertainment. So I never had an issue with it. I get criticized a lot. This is what people don't understand. I get criticized a lot. People like to say to me that, well, you like to take credit for all the good stuff, but you don't take responsibility for any of the bad stuff. And what I try to logically explain to these people is, well, first of all, when you talk about I don't take responsibility for the bad stuff, that's subjective. Okay, you think it's the bad stuff, but what might be bad to you might not be bad for somebody else. So when you say I don't take responsibility for the bad stuff, you're saying I don't take responsibility for what you didn't like. I said, number two, obviously, if I didn't think it was a good idea, I wouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. So like even stuff that played out that people didn't like, if I didn't think it was a good idea, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. So of course I'm not going to sit here and say that was a bad idea, 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 because if I wouldn't have done it if I thought that.
But you can look back through different eyes now after years have passed. Maybe the religion might play a little bit into it, and look back and see that the sensitivities of a woman at home who maybe had experienced this, seeing it in a wrestling angle, might have thought it was tacky.
Valid
or not valid?
Probably valid, but at the end of the day, listen, man, I'm a television junkie. I've been watching television my whole life. I'm a huge television fan. That's my vice. And like I said, when you look at what's on from 9 to 11 o'clock at night, this is a storyline that you would have seen played out on, dozens of us. From that perspective, I mean, now, there are things I did that I thought were bad, but that wasn't one of them.
How soon after this happening does this come out that this actually happened? Is that, you could see that in the ratings, obviously, right? You could see a huge shift like that. Mm-hmm. When were you aware that it was Schiavone that gave you the assist?
But it wasn't. Have you ever talked to Tony about this?
I haven't.
Oh, well, I mean, Eric, in his headset, gave him that verbatim.
Right, I mean, it's Tony's voice we hear.
Because Tony was like, Tony knew when he said it, like, are you serious? But I remember watching it because I think we were taped or something.
You were taped, right? Sure,
that's
because
why I remember
that's
watching this, and I remember watching it and saying, "Listen, when you tell people don't turn the channel, right there, they're going to turn the channel."
Oh, so you knew immediately that this was going to backfire on them.
The minute you tell somebody not to do something, they're going to do it, and then when you ended with probably one of the most beloved wrestlers in the history of the business finally getting his due, how are you not going to go change the channel and see that? Just really dumb.
Did you think Mick was a good champion?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he deserved it. And I think that's one of the things that, throughout his illustrious career, he'll never forget. And I'm very thankful that we had the opportunity to do it.
Well, I'm very thankful that you sat here for many hours.
88 pages we did, right?
We did 89. 89 pages.
Nice.
About 98. Looking back, a lot's happened to you with that company we just talked about since then, and other companies. Where do you file 98 in your personal memories of your career as a whole?
Like I said, I had never went back and watched any of this stuff. I was there the night that it happened, and that was the extent of it. Now, due to my podcast, I'm going back and I'm watching this stuff and I'm commentating on it. Mm-hmm. And, watching this stuff compared to, watching wrestling in 2015, I just sit there and I'm like, you just have to be kidding me. It's the product today is mm-hmm. not even in the same ballpark. I remember I just came off of one of the episodes, man, and it was the Tyson Austin first showdown in the ring. Remember when Tyson shoved
sure.
Austin and that
yeah.
violent
oh, yeah.
I was watching that like, and I realized it will never ever get better than that. And like I said, man, the talent we had, the best roster in the history of wrestling. I give Jim Ross all the credit for that. I worked for wrestling companies where some of the athletes had no business being on television. Absolutely no business. And not only that, when their contracts were up, they would get re-signed. It was horrifying. The roster that Jim Ross, put together was just unbelievable. Everybody at the top of their game. There wasn't a weak link. But like I said, my proud moment is knowing how good these guys and gals were. Somebody had to give them the content every single week. And that's why I said, man, Robert De Niro can make a blockbuster and he can make a bomb. Dustin Hoffman can make The Graduate and, he can make Hook. That's all in the writing. So the challenge was, from a writing level, to be as good on our level as the performers were on theirs. And like I said, I look at today's product, What I'm seeing in the ring and what I'm seeing on the roster, there's no difference between that roster and the workers and the athletes today. There's absolutely no difference. They're busting their butts. Nobody's going through the motions. They're giving their all. The difference is they're not being given the material that meets their talent. So you're getting their talent, but then you get material down here, and that's what it looks like, rather than the material being as good as their talent. That's the problem. That's what you're not getting that today.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I had you here and I didn't mention this. This is the height of the Attitude Era. This is the turnaround. This is after 83 weeks. You look back on it. You must have fond memories. There's so much to be proud of professionally for you. But is it like looking back at a marriage that became problematic later because you've got a lot of the people who benefited from these 89 pages in so many ways that are executives and owners of that company that shit all over you? Is it like looking through a scrapbook when you and your sweetheart, everything was great, and wondering, what did I do but give you success?
Yeah, no, of course it is, because I can't help but to look at, listen, people don't understand this. When I started writing the television, first of all, Vince McMahon was Vince McMahon, the WWE, was in such a bad place at that time. The company was financially in the red. They were in such a bad place at the time that he gave a magazine writer the job of writing television. That's almost like, I have nothing to lose. Like, I had never written TV before. I was the editor of the magazine. That kind of shows you, like, the state of desperation. Like, I don't know, this is crazy enough to work. So it's like, I sit here and I look at where they were prior to Vince Russo working on the television. The success while Vince Russo was there, and then a 15-year drop in the ratings after Vince Russo left. And like, I can't put myself on the same level of, do you really have that much of an ego that you cannot give somebody else credit for part of the success that your company had? I'm the kind of guy, like, that's why every interview I do, you can hear me, you can go back and look. I can't mention Ed Ferrara enough. To me, it brings me great joy to put other people over. It gives me great joy to say Jim Ross put together a great roster. It gives me great joy to say Vince Russo was Vince McMahon took those nuances and made everything better. Everybody on the roster was at the top of the game. Richie Curtis. It brings me great joy to put other people over.
Why can't that building? They put everybody over. They put Hogan over.
That's what I'm saying. I can't comprehend in my mind, you're going to bring on a guy in Eric Bischoff whose goal was to put your company out of business, who challenged you to a shoot fight, by the way, who used Ted Turner's money to buy everybody from your company. You're going to take your time and resources to put that guy over and use him to discredit the guy that was a big part of giving you the greatest, era in wrestling history. I can't make sense. I can't, listen, if Vince McMahon has that type of an ego, I can't comprehend that type of an ego. I can't understand it because I don't have it. I love talking about the Attitude Era because everybody involved in this should be proud of it, but I also love putting everybody over and talking about a Shawn Michaels, and the stuff that he did. That brings joy to me. Why he wants to go the other way, I mean, I can't understand an ego that big. And it really is bittersweet because, I'm a big baseball fan. And how many times, you could watch any team, how many times does the old-timer come up in the booth and sit in the booth, and the announcers are like, you know, Willie Mays is here. Not that I'm Willie Mays by any stretch of the imagination, but you know what I'm saying. The people that were a rich part of the history of the team, you know, they're welcome to the stadium, and for me to just like it's almost like, you know, it's a mission to discredit anything Vince did. I can't understand.
Is it just because you left? Is it just because you left?
No, because
a lot of people left and came back.
But I left and I did go back. And I also apologized to Vince for leaving the way I did and told him man to man, face to face, this is why I did it. This is why I explained it to him, man to man, face to face, this is why I did it. You know, the comment he made about getting a nanny to raise my kids, I hit him with, I told him I did not appreciate that. So like I would have thought in 2002 that meeting was water under the bridge, but I don't know, man. I think they need to worry a little bit more about their product than they do me.
Thank you for taking the journey, Willie Mays, the Willie Mays of wrestling.
No, please don't even say, no, cut that, edit that.
He's going to run with it. Corny's going to run with it.
No.
Thank you for watching.
Corny won't run with that. He don't know who Willie Mays is.